This is task number 3 of Pop Art Google Classroom's Lesson 1, Creating Tone Through Mark Making. If you don't have the worksheet or you're not able to print it out, then you can rule out similar rectangles in your sketchbook. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different rectangles, and I'd like you to rule them out as neatly as you can. You should be able to fit them on half of a page, half of an A4 page in your sketchbook. Otherwise, complete the worksheet and stick it into your sketchbook. So we're looking at creating tone through mark making, and we need to give a couple of definitions there. First of all, tone or value refers to lightness and darkness in an object. Up here we have a value scale or a tonal value scale. We have white on one side, that's the highest value, and then we have black on the other side, and that's the lowest value. And we see that we're gradually going from light to dark. You've already learnt how to use the side of your pencil to gradually shade from light to dark, but there are other ways of creating tone or value, and we're going to learn how to create tone by using mark making. Now, mark making is a term that we use in art just to describe the different lines, patterns and textures that we can create with our pencil or our paintbrush or any other art material. So if you've ever just sat and doodled in class, hopefully not when you're meant to be concentrating, that's you mark making. You're familiar with one type of mark making already, and that's hatching and cross hatching. Technically, shading like this, graduated shading, is also a form of mark making. But normally when we talk about mark making, we're talking about making different marks on our page, and that can be used to create different patterns and textures when we're drawing and shading. Now, this little exercise is designed to help you think about the different ways that you can make marks, but also how you can change the value of those marks by leaning heavier or lighter, or creating or reducing the amount of space between your marks. So what I would like you to do for each of these is to look carefully at the example in the square and how it goes from light on one side to dark on the other. And then I would like you to recreate that effect in the rectangle. So you're going to have to stretch out what's happening in the square here, just like we have in the top rectangle going from light to dark. So I'm going to give you an example on a couple of these, not all of them, and I'd like to see how you try to do the others. So down here we have hatching and cross hatching, which we already know about. That might be a good place to start. And so over here I'm going to leave that because I want this to be white, and I'm going to start about here, and I'm going to keep my lines relatively far apart, and as I move along I'm going to gradually bring them closer and closer together until they're basically touching. And you might want to go back the other way now. Change your pencil around so you're using the sharper point. And there we have hatching. That's more difficult to do when you're cross hatching, and so I'm going to leave that one for you to try and figure out yourself. I'm going to go down to this one here, and it's good to think about what you might use these different marks for. after Easter we'll be looking at an artist called Vincent van Gogh, and he often used lots of different types of mark making with his pens, pencils and paintbrush to try and mimic the textures that he saw in nature. And so you could imagine that this one in particular would maybe be used for something like hay, straw, grass. And so what I'm doing as I move from light to dark is I'm increasing the number, and I'm even starting to overlay them a little bit. And I look here, it's really dark here, so I want it to be really dark at the end. And now I'm going to work back the other way. You should take your time with these, don't rush them. You know, each one should take you at least 3 or 4 minutes of focused work. And I'd also like you to make sure that you're keeping all of your work in the lines as far as possible. So there's 2 examples, hatching and this mark here. It's important to know that not all of them have official names. Hatching and cross-hatching are the most common, but there are endless ways which you could create different marks to mimic different textures that you see and to make them darker, to create tone through mark making.